Welcome to the Butterfly Effect Part 2. Today is the start of the Belgium Classics Omloop Het Nieuwsblad because it's February 25th. So we gotta have a second Butterfly Effect here on Saturday of February 25th. Now, today's race, 207 kilometers, 21 bergs and cobblestones and all kinds of chaos to blow up the field and leave us all sitting on the chest of field incredibly entertained here on today's Saturday morning race. When I look at the field, you see Wout van Aert's not here, Mathieu van der Poel's not here, so everything is open for a possibility for anyone to be able to win today's race. But when I look at the big teams, Jumbo-Visma's got to be a favorite still because, of course, Van Hooijdonk is here, Christophe Laporte is here, Tis Benoot's here, and Dylan Van Baarle, last year's Paris-Roubaix winner, who jumped ship from Ineos over to Jumbo-Visma, he's on the squad. Other teams aren't so much in depth, but still look kind of solid. Bahrain Victorious have a ton of different names because Mate Mohoric is here, but not the big power names that we're talking about Jumbo-Visma, but enough that if the team can race intelligently, they could stand a good shot of winning Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. Ineos looked pretty solid. Tom Pidcock, he's been on good form, already won over in Algarve at a summit finish climb there. So we know he's riding good. And they have the ex-road world champion, Michael Kwiatkowski, on the team. So Ineos have depth to be able to go deep in today's Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. Now, one of the teams that has possibly the outright favorite here is Arnaud de Lee, but they don't have quite depth there on Lotto's Destiny to be able to look after Arnaud de Lee all the way to the finish if they don't race intelligently. But before the race starts, those four teams look exciting and ones you want to keep an eye on for sure. Now, if I'm sitting in a Lotto Destiny bus, I'm looking at everybody there. Victor Campenaut's big favorite. He's had some good form and he rides for Lotto Destiny too, but not the kind of form that Arnaud de Lee has. So I'm saying to all of my teammates, can you get me to the finish if I'm Arnaud de Lee? I need to get far into this race, out of trouble, and all the way into the finishing climbs so I can light it up and be able to be up there with the favorites when we're coming into the line with the chance to win. Or better yet, get me to 200 meters and Arnaud de Lee just light this thing up if that's a possibility for Lotto Destiny. When the racing starts, we're 80 kilometers into it. There's a group of 7 up the road and another group of 6 chasing hard. Now, the front group of 7 is represented by Louis Blauwe from Bingold, Alex Coleman from Flanders, his teammate De Wilder, another rider, Adam De Vos from Human Powered Health, Jelly Wallace from Cofidis is up there, Matthias Jorgensen from Movistar, and keep an eye on Arkea Samsic, Mathies Lebert. Lebert is going to put on a show here at Omloop Het Nieuwsblad considering the amount of work the Arkea Samsic rider does today. That group of 7's got a 4-minute lead on the peloton, but there's a group of 6 in between, like I was telling you, and these are big-time hitters in this front group because Fred Wright is there, Jan Tratnik from Jumbo-Visma is there, Van Hooijdonk from Jumbo-Visma is there, Mark Haller from Bora Hansgrohe, Connor Swift from Ineos, and Keelan O'Brien from Jaco Alula's the last rider of 6 up there, but they got about a 2-minute gap on the peloton behind. We go back to the peloton. Guess who's on the front? It's Lotto. They missed those moves up front and they got to pull because they have the big-time outright favorite in my book and the lead here if you can get him to the finish like I was saying. So Lotto Destiny has blown up the peloton. It's all in pieces everywhere. You know when the cameras come on, you're going to be excited when you see the peloton blown up like this, with Lotto just putting in massive accelerations on the front. With 73 kilometers to go, we're going to see a crash from Tim de Klerk from Quickstep. This is the big-time diesel motor up there that was going to be there to hold this all together and possibly help Lotto Destiny keep this together too. But de Klerk goes down hard, and this is why I brought up the 2 Belgium jerseys from 06 and 07, because I want to tell you guys, the Belgium fans here, they're spectacular. Watch what happens. One of the fans jumps out in the road in time to avoid the riders that are coming behind him right there because he stays close to de Klerk. Then after the peloton comes by, the second fan comes from the back and he runs over there to the front of the bike. So you got 2 fans helping out de Klerk. One's lifting him up, one's holding the bike. And then we see Shimano. Shimano pulls up. They come running over. When they do, the fan that was holding the bike, he knows it's clear for him now to go over help Niels Eckhoff, who went down from DSM. So as Niels Eckhoff is sitting on the left side of the bike, standing, there, the fan is on the right side of the bike, putting the chain back on, helping him, and then giving him a big push to take off. Guess what? After he pushes off Niels Eckhoff, he's not even done. He comes back. The Shimano mechanic needs to take off to get back to the race, so he still helps out there Tim DeClercq. We'll see the Shimano guy take off, and those two fans look after Tim DeClercq until we see Quick-Step mechanic run over and hand DeClercq his rain jacket. Now, I've raced many times in Belgium in the early 90s with FDJ, and I spent a little bit of time up there with Lotto, less because I wasn't such a classic rider unless you're talking about Flesh, LBL, and of course, Amstel Gold. But other than those, only early in my career did I do these early classics like Omloop Het Nieuwsblad and E3 Harrowback. But Tim DeClercq, once he gets his rain jacket, I can tell you he's not planning on finishing the race. He's going to find a shortcut back home to the finish line and call it a day here for Tim DeClercq. Now we go back up to the front. That group of 6 is getting brought back. So now we only have the group of 7 up the road. And it's about 55 kilometers to go at Omloop Het Nieuwsblad when we start seeing some more action at the front up there from Jumbo-Visma attacking and Bahrain Victorious attacking. Once we get into about 53 kilometers, 51 kilometers to go, Arnaud Delis crashes. And guess what? It's another spectacular Belgium fan that runs over to Arnaud Delis, the Lotto Destiny big-time favorite here in my book to win. He comes over there and helps Arnaud Delis with his bike. And again, the Belgium fan gives a big push. So big high five to some intelligent Belgium fans out there. Now, I think in my book, when it comes to Belgium, the Netherlands, these are the best fans you can have and most intelligent that know what to do. And aside from up here in the north, you got to go to the Basque Country to see some other fans that know how to handle bike racing and how to stay in trouble but still help their favorite bike riders out when they can. Now, Arnaud Delis chasing big time. There's a gap. No teammates are with him until finally we see 2 teammates come back. We go up to the front of the peloton where action is fully going engulfed up there, and we see it's Victor Campernauts, my man Victor. He's here at Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. He's got some company with one other teammate as they're trying to slow down the front of the peloton because Arnaud Delis and his teammates back there are trying to get back on. We'll see Arnaud Delis finally get back on, and then when that happens, one of the Lotto Destiny rider crashes on the left side of the road with the Intermarché. So Lotto Destiny are not having any luck right now. From about 50 kilometers into 40 kilometers to go, they're having all kinds of chaos with big efforts from Arnaud Delis and crashes all over the place. Now up front, that, like I said, with the group of 6 all wrapped up, it's about 49 kilometers to go, and that group of 7 is blowing up on this climb because these 3 riders, they know they need to keep on the gas if they want to hold off the chasing peloton that's only about 30 seconds on their heels. When we see the Arkea Samsic rider Liebherr accelerate with Matthias Jorgensen, Jelly Wallace from Cofidis, these 3 riders are riding for big time teams, so they got to put on a show. They split off from the other 4 and they keep on the gas. Now the other 4 get wrapped up, and this is when we start seeing Dylan Van Barley. He throws in a big time acceleration. He's got Tom Pidcock on his wheel, and Arnaud Delis, Lotto Destiny, has made himself up into the front group with the attacking Dylan Van Barley. There's one other rider, Stefan Kuhn, who's up there. As the group was getting caught and brought back, Liebherr throws in a big acceleration. He's made it in this front big acceleration from Dylan Van Barley. This was a little bit strange. Dylan Van Barley's up here, Jumbo-Visma's pulling back, but now there's about a group of about 30, 25 riders up there. 4 Jumbo-Visma, 4 Bahrain Victorious riders up there, and 4 Lotto Soudal riders. They don't like the chemistry, and everything sits up and slows down a little bit. Dylan Van Barley throws in another massive attack. Lotto Destiny cover it in the form of Florian Vermeersch, and then Bahrain Victorious, they cover it with Jonathan Milan, the Italian rider who's already won early here in the 2023 season. Guess what? There's a 4th rider, Archaic Samsic, Liebherr. Now Van Barley's throwing in hard acceleration. Florian Vermeersch, to my surprise, he's throwing in big-time accelerations too. Remember, he has the sprinter Arnaud Delis, who's clearly on form, but they're not going to play that card as Florian Vermeersch is throwing in big-time effort. Jonathan Milan, Bahrain Victorious, he's throwing in everything on the pedals. The only guy not riding through is the Arkea Samsic rider, Liebherr. Now, Liebherr's intelligent. He knows better than to take a pull. I don't like the tactics from Lotto Soudal because I wouldn't pull with any group that didn't have Arnaud Delis in it, but they're going through pull for pull with Dylan Van Barley. Now, Van Barley doesn't like the chemistry, so he throws in a big acceleration, and Bahrain Victorious comes off the back Milan. With Milan coming off the back, that's opening up a gap. And remember, if you drop the Bahrain Victorious rider, normally Bahrain Victorious in the back is going to start chasing. So I don't know if I'm a big fan of this move from Dylan Van Barley, but he does it anyways. Arceus Samsic bridges up to him, and then of course we got the Lotto Destiny Florian Vermeersch that bridges up. Now there's 3 riders in the front. Bahrain Victorious is in the back. They're still not chasing, even though Milan has gotten dropped. We saw big time attacks coming up some of the climbs that came from AG2R's Greg Van Avermaet, but he couldn't dislodge the group and bridge up to these 4 guys. And then we saw some attacks by Niels Eckhoff, DSM. He had crashed with Tim de Klerk way back there at 73 kilometers ago, and now he's throwing an attack here at Omloop Het Nieuwsblad to try to get up to this group of 4. Now, there's 3 guys up front. Like I said, they still got a gap because everything in the back, there's no chemistry. And then all of a sudden, we see another acceleration from Dylan Van Barley, and this dislodges the Lotto Destiny rider as he's coming out the back. We'll see the Arceus Samsic rider, Libert, he'll bridge up and still get back to the wheel of Dylan Van Barley. He'll hold that wheel all the way up until we start the final famous climb. But Florian Vermeersch, he'll drop back all the way to Milan, and they're stuck in the gap. They're not going to gain on Dylan Van Barley, but they haven't been wise enough to go back and start pulling the peloton back there. Now, let's go back and look at the peloton, because guess what? Jumbo-Visma, it's on a narrow road. They got loads of guys at the front trying to slow it down. And we see Bahrain Victorious at the front not pulling right now, even though Milan has gotten dropped and he's in the nowhere gap and not coming back. Lotto Soudal's not up there pulling either. So the gap up to Dylan Van Barley and the Arceus Samsic rider Libert is still starting to grow. As we see the group behind, finally we see on the radio there, it's Bahrain Victorious getting on the radio, and he's asking, hey, should I start pulling? What should we do? What should we do? Man, you got to get on the front and start pulling. Of course you got to pull. You're one of the big time favorite teams here. You got to pull. Everybody in the peloton should be pulling 100% right now, but instead they just been hesitating as the group of 2, that's a group of 4 has split up to 3, which is split up to 2, and now once we start the Capo Muir, this is when all of a sudden Dylan Van Barley's finally going to drop their Arceus Samsic rider Libert. We start with 17 kilometers to go. Dylan Van Barley throws in a massive acceleration on the cobblestones, and he knows he's got to get all the way up to the famous church at the top of the climb with a gap on everyone behind if he wants a shot at winning Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. As he's dropping Libert, he's getting the gap, and we know he's got a shot at going solo. He rounds the final cobblestones up to the church. When the camera fades back, we got to go down the hill, because guess what's happening? We're seeing the next big attacks. It's Tim Wellens back there, UAE Team Emirates, throwing in a massive dig. Mate Mahort, Bahrain Victorious, is trying to follow with him. As they come by the Arceus Samsic rider, he's still got no form left. He can't hold on. He opens up the gap. The 2 riders come out of the final corner coming up to the church, 1 and 2 with a little bit of gap. And then when we see 3, it's Arnaud Delis, Lotto Destiny, that's trying to close the gap. And just behind him, Christophe Laporte, Jumbo-Visma, is trying to close up on the Arnaud Delis. They'll go over the top of the mirror, the Keppel mirror there, with a gap of about 13 seconds up to Dylan Van Barley, and they're trying to get all together. As they do, they got 4 riders at front. But guess what? Christophe Laporte, Jumbo-Visma, he's not going to pull because Dylan Van Barley's up the road going solo, and that gap is stretching out to about 15 seconds. Now it starts to come back down, getting closer to about 12 seconds before the next climb. But once we hit the climb, this is when that group of 4, with only 3 pulling there, Tim Wellens, Arnaud Delis, and Bahrain Victorious, Mate Mahort, they're pulling, but they just can't bring back time up there on Dylan Van Barley, who's going over this next climb, starts to extend it out to about 15 seconds. Now we go back to what's considered the peloton, maybe 25, 20 guys back there. EF Education's finally getting organized, getting on the front. Jumbo-Visma's represented everywhere, and the only place they're working is Dylan Van Barley. They're slowing down the peloton back there, and Christophe Laporte throwing down the 3 chasers that are trying to get to Dylan Van Barley. We go under 5K to go. We see the gap is extended out to about 30 seconds for Dylan Van Barley, and now we know with the 4 chasers behind, with the chaos that Christophe Laporte's causing, they're not going to catch Dylan Van Barley up front because the gap is just extending. But can they hold off the peloton behind for a podium position? Up front with 1K to go, Dylan Van Barley's got this Omloop Het Nieuwsblad classic opener up in Belgium wrapped up. He'll come through celebrating, look over his shoulder once, and then the arms will go up high, and he starts celebrating the big classic win for Jumbo-Visma, and he celebrates with arms raised up high as he crosses the line. behind. When we look at the 4 chasers, it's being led by Tim Wellens, but it's 200 meters to go, and the group behind is catching the back end of the 4 guys up front. Arnold DeLee sees it as he looks over his shoulder to the left side. He knows they're coming, so he starts his sprint. He goes all the way to the line to get a second place podium position here at Omloop Het Nieuwsblad, and Christophe Laporte, who's had a free ride on these 3 guys, have round out the podium for top 3. The other 2, Tim Wellens, Mate Mohoric, got absorbed from the chasing group behind and finished outside of the top 20. So today's results, fantastic racing. There was action all over. And the Belgium fans that helped Niels Eckhoff and Tim de Klerk, you two were something special out there with your intelligence on how to avoid the traffic and help the riders get back on their bike. And then Arnold DeLee, the one fan that you had to help you, did a marvelous job to help you get up on your bike fast and back into the peloton to be able to follow these attacks and make your own, even after you had to do another bike change before you got to the back of the peloton. Fantastic ride by Arnold DeLee. I don't like Lotto Destiny's tactics at all today, because I would have been more around Arnold DeLee the whole time. And of course, when you're talking about Florian Vermeersch being in that front group doing pull for pull with Dylan Van Barley just to get dropped later, okay, maybe you don't know the form of Dylan Van Barley, even though he won Paris-Roubaix last year. This is his first race of the season, so maybe you're not sure. It's not a big deal to be in that front move, but just kill it, come back. Arnold DeLee still got to be the big time favorite. And then after you get dropped, if you're Bahrain Victorious Milan and if you're Florian Vermeersch, you got to go straight back to the group and start pulling 100%. Otherwise, I guess you're just hoping that your team comes up to you, and the whole time they're sitting back there not pulling, you're not pulling here. Dylan Van Barley is going up the road with one Archaea Samsic rider in the form of Lebert, who you had fantastic form. Lebert, hats off, tip of the hat, everything you want. High praise here on the Butterfly Effect for a fantastic ride. But you know Dylan Van Barley is going to go big time, so you don't want to give him much room, and that's what Lotto Destiny did today wrong. Bahrain Victorious did it wrong today. Don't like the tactics. Love the racing, though, because knuckleheads always make for great racing, right? Here on the Butterfly Effect. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. I hope you enjoyed the 2 editions here at the UAE Tour and Omloop Het Nieuwsblad, the opener up in the Belgium North racing here for the start of the classic season. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys real soon.